Hello everyone, my name is Camila Loaiza and today I will talk about some design about teaching material. So I will answer two questions. The first question is what should ELT materials have? So I will talk about six different tips that materials have. Yeah. The first is expose the learners to language in an authentic use. It means that the material should stimulate learner interaction, which they need and find in real situations. Also, it has to help learners to pay attention to features of an authentic input. These materials should help learners to become aware of a gap between a particular feature of their interlanguage and the equivalent feature in their target language. It also has to provide the learners with opportunities to use the target language to achieve communicative purposes. Some examples of these activities are post-listening and post-reading activities, which require the learners to use information from the text. Also create writing and speaking activities like writing stories and use it like in role plays. Then we have provide opportunities for outcome feedback. We know that feedback is so important for the students, especially if they aren't successful in communicative activities. Achieve impact in the sense that they arouse and sustain the learner's curiosity and attention. Well, that means that the classes have to be interesting for the students, and they have to motivate English language learning. Stimulate intellectual, aesthetic, and emotional involvement. The materials should encourage the students to think and to feel. So now I will continue talking about some proposals for principal approaches to the development of ELT materials. This is divided uh, into six different proposals. So let's begin with the first. And the first is learners are exposed to a rich, meaningful, and comprehensible input of language in use. Well, each of these proposals have different principles. So the first that we are talking about learners are exposed to a rich input of language is language in use. That means that we have to make sure that the materials contain a lot of spoken and written text. So this provides the extensive experience of language being used in order to achieve outcomes in a variety of text types or different topics. Some examples of these materials are tax-free activities. Like after reading a poem or a story, you know that there are no questions or tasks after this activity. So just with hang out some reading copies for the students who were engaged in the activity, and they could take it home, read it again. The next, in order for the learners to maximize their exposure to the language in use, they need to be engaged both affectively and cognitively in the language experience. Um, this means that we have to make use of activities which get the learners to think about what they are reading or listening, and they have to respond to it personally. So they can articulate their personal responses to the text or to the topic that we are working on to stimulate their own language production. Now we have language learners who achieve positive effect are much more likely to achieve communicative competence than those who don't. So we have to make sure that these topics that we are using in class and the materials that we are using in class are very interesting, are relevant and enjoyable. So this will arouse a positive influence on the learner's attitudes. It's important also to offer the students the choices of the text and the task so they can select by themselves the topics to discuss about. Second language learners can benefit from using those mental resources which they typically utilize when acquiring and using their first language. Um, we have to make use of activities which get learners to use inner speech before, during, and after using language themselves. Some examples is like to create material to help the students to do this. For example, before asking the students to read a story, a specific story, so ask the students to visualize a similar story by themselves so they can feel or they can have the same feelings or visualize something. Now we have language learners can benefit from noticing salient features of the input. For this, so we can, rather than drawing the learner's attention to a particular feature of a text and then providing explicit information, we can ask the students to make discoveries from themselves. So here I would like to notice that we can apply the critical thinking, and this is like the using of a lot of language awareness where they can read a text and also they can identify the grammar used in the text and maybe use in a different context. Also, learners need opportunities to use the language to try to achieve communicative purposes. We have to provide opportunities for the learners to produce the language in different contexts in order to achieve the intended outcomes. Some examples where we can give about this material is that the students can produce a text about something that they have experienced, so like a storytelling or a circle story where we can narrate a story and then they have to relocate the story in a different context or in a different situation. So thank you so much for listening to this presentation.